Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. Um, you can see from my background, Josh and I were joking. I'm coming live to you from planet I'm not feeling great, which maybe some of you have either experienced in your homes or with loved ones, just a slight cold. So today's sit will be a little quieter than I usually teach. But so happy to be with you. And Josh is right. I'm here to help us remember that we have a monthly cycle in Jewish wisdom and that Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, is upon us. It's actually going to happen over this weekend. This Rosh Chodesh is the month of Tevet, and it is a very special month in North African cultures. Rosh Chodesh Tevet is known as a holiday called the Chag Habanot, which means the night of the women. And it's a tradition I wasn't raised with, but I think is fabulous. And I want to offer it to you all to just have in your awareness as you are thinking about how you might honor Rosh Chodesh over this weekend, and how you might even bring in some daughters into your life, whether or not they're your actual daughters or there's some other people who are daughters of Mother Earth, to have an extra time to honor them. On Rosh Chodesh Tevet, we read the story of Judith. I know I'm spotlighted, but by show of hands, raise your hand if you know someone named Judith. Okay, a lot of people, even my great aunt. These people are named for this biblical character who, I'm not going to go into it so much, but I encourage you to explore more. She's quite the badass, and she protects the Jewish people who were on siege from the Assyrians. Her story is a legend, just like the Maccabee story is a legend. So we read those stories in conjunction with each other during this time. And we read the story of Judith and what she did in order to protect the Jewish people on Chag Habanot, on Rosh Chodesh Tevet. For those of you who love like medieval art painting, you probably have seen them of Judith and Holofernes. To cut to the chase, Judith chops the army general's head off, Holofernes, and brings it back into the village or the Jewish people to say, like, look what I've done in order to protect people. What occurs to me is that this woman has incredible courage and that she recognizes that she's the right person at the right time to do something that she sees, and then overcomes fear and takes actions towards it. The quality that I want to bring to us in our meditation today is courage. And I'm inspired by a quote from one of my teachers, Rabbi Laura Geller, who is alive and in LA, and how her reflection of courage and Hanukkah are related. So I'm going to share my screen and read this quote to you. The miracle wasn't that the oil lasted an additional 7 days, but rather that those ancestors lit the first wick at all, without being certain that the light would last long enough to complete the rededication of the temple. The miracle was that they took the chance, a risk, a leap of faith. They took the first step even though they were not sure they had enough resources to succeed. What is the real miracle of Hanukkah? It is the miracle of human courage that empowers us to take risks for the future, even if in our imperfect, uncertain world. It is that courage, even in the darkest of times, to create our own light. So I want to open to the chat. It's my style. I would love to hear some reflections from you all on the qualities of courage. You can think about how courage shows up in your body, because in a moment we're going to get really quiet and we're going to evoke it. But first, I want us to explore some thoughts. The qualities of courage, specifically how it shows up in your body. I've gotten some requests to put the quote in the chat, which I will do later. Tingling, overcoming fear. Courage is not easy. Holding both the pit in my stomach and the fullness in my heart. Bravery. My posture makes me straighten up. Bold. Strengthening. Empowered and capable. Open-chested. Adrenaline. Easy breathing. Peaceful determination. A smile. The heart feels strongly enough to overcome fear. At the same time, folks say, gritting my teeth, holding on. So we hear both the open-heartedness, easy to breathe, empowered, straightening my posture, open-hearted, and I'm holding on, I'm clenching my fist, I'm grinding my teeth. I'm just praying that we're going to get through this. Someone said privately in a chat to me that if you don't fear it, it's not courage. So with that, we have this extremely complicated, unique, and powerful emotion to explore today. I want to invite us to bring in courage into our sit and just explore what comes up when you think about and you recall the courage of Judith, or you recall the courage of the Israelites to light that first candle without knowing what's going on. We are the inheritors of their story, but we are not alone. You know, the world needs people to be courageous now. So let's explore it together in our quiet sit and notice what comes up in your body and your breath when you evoke the stories of these people that we're named for. Allow your eyes to close if that's your practice. Ground your feet to the floor and find a posture that evokes courage. Starting our meditation together, we can inhale deeply. Exhale, audible, breath out. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. And exhaling. Just get really curious about what happens in your body when I just say the word courage. without judging it, without allowing your mind to go through all the memories that you might have evoked courage. Just noticing simple body sensations. If you're somebody whose body responds to courage by tightening up, see if you can get curious and explore what happens when you add your breath, when you add that focused attention of the present moment. And if when I say courage, it emboldens you and lengthens your body, then get used to that sensation and remember that it's there for you inside of you. Travel back in time with me, way, way, way back. See Judith, even if you don't know the story that well. Imagine just an average, everyday woman who was presented with something big, took action on it. Imagine what it must have felt like. Time travel with me again to the scene of the crime, of the destruction of the temple. This devastating act we are still commemorating. And imagine what it must have been like to be one of the people there who had the courage to light the flame and take that step towards rededication. Imagine what those humans were going through. Find your breath. Find your body. And travel back to your living room with me. And imagine the places in your home, in your neighborhood, in your community, in your state, in your country, where you could act in courage. And see yourself in those moments with the qualities that we've been exploring. See yourself being a Judith or something. Maybe not chopping a head off, but metaphorically. See yourself rededicating something that's been broken and having the courage to light it up again. For our last moments together, imagine everyone on this call acting in their strongest, courageous self. All 214 of us. And what does it feel like to be part of a community, of a faith, of a tradition, who act in courage? We'll take 3 last breaths together, inhaling Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. And exhaling. When you're ready, you can lift the corners of your mouth to the sky. Allow your eyes to open. See some kind eyes in the Zoom room near you. I'm so grateful to be with you all today. Thanks for having me, even in a not feeling great world. And Josh, been thinking about our conversations, partnerships, and the tree from which you fell with Lou in mind. So thanks for helping me and inviting me in to honor him.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks so much. Please feel invited to stick around for some conversation with Sarah about that practice and sharing your experience. If you're not going to be sticking around, we will be back here tomorrow, same time, same channel. And if you'd like to join me in saying Kaddish, if you're saying Kaddish for someone today, as I am, please feel welcome to put their name in the chat. And Kat will put the text up on the screen. Okay, and you can feel welcome to unmute yourself in a moment. As soon as we get that text up, there we go. And feel welcome to unmute yourself, and you can join me. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Me Rabbi, Alma Divra, Yamli, Chayechon, Uvyomechon, Chaye, Gechol, Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Bizman,
Amen.
Hey Shmei Rabba, Yitbarach, Yishabach, Yitbar, Yitamam, Yitnaseh, Yitzhadar, Yitzaleh, Yitzlam, Shmei, Yitzusha, Ela, Minkol, Yirchata, V'shirata, V'shpachata, V'nechamata, Miranda, Alma, V'imru, Amen.
Amen.
Mama, Rabba, Min Shmaya, V'chayim, Aleinu, V'al Yisrael, Amen.
Amen.
Shalom, Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Yisrael.
Amen. Amen.
Oh, there we go. Great. Thank you again, Sarah. Thank you so much for your teaching. Just so you know, you're teaching when you're not feeling so well. We wouldn't have known if you if you hadn't mentioned anything, I think. So
I didn't want anybody to catch my cold.
yeah, exactly. That's right. Whatever's going around. So
things are possible in these days and age. 57, 83 is a strange time.
They got an app for that, right? Like, if you want to catch a cold. Yeah. We didn't mention anything else about the fact that Rosh Chodesh Tevet always occurs during Chanukah. So you have like this, and like this year we get a triple header of like Shabbat, Chanukah, Rosh Chodesh, really.
And for those who celebrate Christmas, which I know that there are some in our community, interfaith families, there's a lot going on in this weekend.
That's like a lot happening there. So a lot to take in. There's already some questions and some responses, and I love, Cheryl, your comment. Courage. I'm going to move this over so it's under my camera. Courage feels oddly stable and comforting, in alignment with God and embodied wisdom. It's interesting.
Yeah, Cheryl, I totally agree. I was contemplating teaching courage and then teaching a meditation about taking God into the body, because for me, I find that I'm able to be courageous if I step into that realm of faith, which is not scientific, not tangible, can't see it, personal, and something that I hope everyone here cultivates. And I know Jewish wisdom encourages us to really explore for ourselves, certainly in the darkest time of the year, when we need to cultivate faith and light and to make light in dark places. So yeah, anybody else that's feeling like courage is closely related to being in alignment with the divine or God, just encourage you to keep exploring that for yourself if it works, especially if it means you're going to be able to be a partner with the divine and with God and take action in your local community or in your family or the place that you feel called to respond to things courageously.
Yeah. Some other responses coming in here. There was this question. I'm really struck by Mir's question here. This question of different sort of registers or levels of courage. Some are personal, such as speaking up for oneself. Others are more for the bigger picture, right? Judith, protecting the nation. And Sarah, I know what you're going to do with this question. Like, well, what does everybody else think here? I'm curious to get some responses.
Well, I was about to give my caveat that I'm not a therapist. I'm not a rabbi. I'm just an average person. I'm a CEO, an entrepreneur. I am curious what other people think. I'm curious what you think too, Josh.
Yeah.
I will say that Judith, it's in the story that Judith contemplates her position in the world before she goes and acts. She's a widow. And at that time, there was a lot of purpose that was derived from being married.
Mm-hmm.
She was an elder, so she felt like she had really lived a good life. And I'm not saying that everyone in the town should have done it. The right person at the right time, which is that, everyone's own personal relationship, something that you get called to. And how might I be courageous as a 36-year-old versus how might I be courageous as a 10-year-old versus how might I be courageous when, God willing, the day comes that I'm a 65-year-old? And what might that look like? What might I be saying? What might I be doing? And what would my role be in my family and my community? And I think there's something in there for me about that with Judith. And I think that there's something in there about that within just being a community member these days and being part of something whole and recognizing your position of privilege or power or experience and stepping into that curiosity.
Also strikes me, like, Sarah, that I think that courage is such a subjective experience, right? Like what constitutes something courageous, right? Is really there are certain things, I guess, that are objective, like like the guy standing up, the image of the tank in Tiananmen Square. I just think of and like that person, or that kind of courage, Bloody Sunday, whatever. That's kind of that I think objectively when you're like staring danger in the face or staring death in the face, but on many other levels, it's very subjective, right? Like, and I know there are things that now in my life, I think you're sort of like, maybe I'm rephrasing something you're saying, is there are things in my life now that I don't feel particularly require a particular amount of courage on my part. Like maybe I've gotten used to them. Maybe I have the confidence to do them. I don't feel like I'm like tapping something deep. Like I remember like the first time I asked somebody for, a really big amount of money in my job, which, probably.
I had to do a lot of therapy before I started asking for money.
Yeah. And like, so 20 years ago, starting out, that probably would have like given me the jitters. And now, it helped, I think, that I was in a day-long sit beforehand. And so I was like really cool as a cucumber. But like, but I think that, it is interesting, like those things that don't feel like they require the kind of courage that they might have required of me 20 years ago. And what are those things now that, where I feel like I need to, where I'm tapping into that kind of sensibility? It's a really interesting question, which I hadn't really thought about before. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, like, sometimes people are taking courage towards things they believe in that I really don't believe in at all. And So that goes to your point about being subjective and what it means to create light and darkness, and that's in the container of your worldview. And I might, it still might be courageous for that person to act.
And Joan pointed right. Sometimes courage is not doing; it's the commitment to not act. Right. Oftentimes we have a default towards wanting to do something.
For me, in my life, it's about taking big steps, but it's also just about small acts, everyday acts, things that are going on. I'm reading Michelle Obama's newest book, The Light We Carry. I love that woman, and she offers a lot of tips on resilience. And one of the things that in the chapter that I'm reading right now is just about how, like, small actions, small steps every day, taking small steps towards something actually change the world. And that when you take really big steps, sometimes it stifles you from moving forward and it becomes too big. So with courage and with Chanukah, I just want to narrow the scope all the way down to like your life, your home, your community, and not be like, okay, I'm taking on this huge thing that's in society, because it's going to take all of us. That's why I wanted to end with that sort of sense of community feeling. All of us taking those actions and steps of courage to do big things together.
I mean, and it fits with the quote from Laura Geller that you shared, right? About the courage to just being able to light the candle. I've been thinking also a lot this week about a colleague of mine wrote about, Hanukkah is this interesting holiday that doesn't have any preparation really associated with it. There's no era of Hanukkah. We have an era of something else,
Josh, have you been making latkes at your house?
Okay. Hold on. I did go and buy stuff. Okay.
A lot of preparation.
Absolutely. Of course. But formally speaking, in terms of, there's no and even when you think about what are what's the mitzvah associated with it? It's the most ordinary thing. It's it's turning on the lights, right? Really, that's what they were doing. It's not blowing a shofar. It's not making matzah. It's not sitting in a special hut. It's none of those things. And I think there's a beautiful sort of invitation in that. I've been thinking about this a lot this week of just, it's totally mundane. It's the smallest thing. It's just turning on the light, but the act of courage that is, right? And the act of, and the divinity that's present, the possibility, right? In just the smallest, most mundane act, if we're willing to embrace it and look at it in that way, right? Is this opportunity to bring light and divinity into the world, right? So
I loved your point about how Hanukkah is, it is what it is. It's not the big one for us. But right. I was just on a call maybe 15 minutes before I led this meditation about what At the Well, the organization that I run, is going to do for Elul and for the high holidays. And for me, forgiveness is I feel like it's a shining corner of Jewish wisdom, what we could offer the world. And that takes an enormous amount of courage.
Yep.
And Elul is really about getting yourself comfortable, returning to yourself enough to take that action in the days of awe, to call your mom, call your sibling, take that action of being I missed the mark. And what that brings up, especially if there's something that actually you missed the mark and you really need to apologize for. And the same as with Passover, you said making matzah, blowing the shofar, making matzah were the two symbols you gave, the courage to be freer, the courage to let go of things that are binding you, the courage to stay narrow. I mean, the courage to move from narrowness to expansiveness. Those things take courage. And so I don't know, maybe this Hanukkah, maybe this sit can sit with folks as a time where we're just cultivating, or we're gathering the resources, we're gathering the stories of our ancestors, so that when there's something that's really, really big, it's going to come, Passover is going to come, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are going to come again. And it won't just be those times. It can be reinforced around the calendar, and even in what is considered kind of a low-key, mundane Jewish holiday like Hanukkah. It's so reinforced here too, that it is qualities that we are cultivating as people of faith, communities of faith, as spiritual seekers, so that we are able to act and we are able to bring justice to the world, and we're able to make our homes more loving and more open places, so that a generation away from us, people who are going to be sitting on sits at IJS, donating in our memories and doing your site for us. We'll be able to evoke our names and our stories as role models of people who brought forward that same kind of courage that's pulsing through Jewish wisdom.
Beautiful. We should be taping that. Well, we did tape that. That's good. That's really beautiful, Sarah.
Meditation also takes courage. I saw someone say, like, takes courage to rest. I mean, that's what I'm going to do after this call. But I think meditation, showing up to these meditations, quieting your mind, narrowing that focus, that also takes courage. And especially in these days and age where actually the dominating culture is to like be focused on others, be focused outward, be on our technology, be busy, be pulled in these lots of different places. So with a group of meditators, I also just want to say, like, it is counterculture and it does take courage in order to actually block this time and show up. Yeah.
I felt that this morning when I went to shul to say Kaddish, and morning minyan moves at a clip, in my shul, and people need to get to work and they're there every day, and it's definitely a daily practice, but sometimes it can feel very rote, right? Like people are, it's great that they're showing up, but like the question is, are they really showing up? And I can't judge other people, but for me, I got there, and I got there early enough that I could get my talis and tefillin on and everything, and I had about 3 minutes to sit before we started. And the custom in my shul is that if you have a yartha, you lead davening. And so the Rabbi came over to me and said, you want to go coast to coast? You want to, can you start and take us all the way through? I said, yeah, but I need a minute, to get myself ready. And I was the only person who was doing that, in the room, not surprisingly. And I think, to that point about like what's courageous, it's really interesting. Like, I felt like it took more courage for me to be able to say, I need a minute to sit with my eyes closed to get ready to lead davening than probably it would take for me to ask somebody for $1 million, right? So that's fascinating.
You've gotten really good at asking for money then.
We'll talk about that later.
I gotta call you up.
Fascinating.
But Josh, you're talking about your preparation for a courageous moment, or the courage to take the preparation, both. And just want to recall the namesake Judith that I've been evoking today, who did her own preparation. In her story, she did change her clothes. She did do her awareness practices. She did set her home up for success, knowing that she might not come back to it. She did, tell and not tell the appropriate people what she was doing. And the same thing happens in the story of Esther, who also is a woman who takes on incredible courage. There is a preparation time. It isn't like you just are cannonballing into the water. There's a deliberateness to acting in that courage that I'm hearing you say that you did this morning. And also for folks who are going to practice this in their day, to just remember, maybe you need to do your sit. Maybe you need to take a bath. Maybe you should put your power suit on. I don't know, whatever it is that you need to do in order to get yourself in the cloak, in that feeling, that body sensation we explored today of what courage feels like. Don't forget to do that.
Yeah. That's a good place for us to close, I think. And want to let you get your rest. Thanks as always, Sarah. This is also always so great to be able to spend this time with you. And thanks everybody for being here today. Look forward to being with you again, and continue to have a happy and light-filled and love-filled Chanukah, and a courageous Chanukah as well.